Hello friends, I was really hoping that the going to school with no pants on nightmares would stop happening when he was finished with school here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on 2 meme builds that are actually destroying pubs right now. Number 1, Offlane IO, which Brax has been spamming in his pubs recently. So my understanding for why this hero makes so much sense as an offlaner is essentially just a function of the current meta. You have the fact that the hero is incredible with farm, so you need to be in a core position, but if played in the offlane position, then at every point in the game, you have a buddy to play with. In the late game, you have hyper carries such as Sven or PA that are being played in the carry position right now. You have mid-game heroes that are being played mid, such as Storm Spirit, such as Ember Spirit, that all love to be buffed by an IO, and then generally your 4 position is a Rubik or Alina, or Tusk, Earth Spirit, either a brawler or a trading hero, all of which would love to be buffed by IO. So this is one of the best patches to actually play this hero in pubs. I would not recommend IO in pubs usually because it makes so much sense in competitive, but not in pubs. But this patch is a pub IO patch in the offlane. First, let's take a look at how Brax skills and itemizes on this offlane IO. So first, he goes for overcharge because trading in the lane, then he goes for tether because once again, trading in the lane. Then after that, he maxes out spirits because it's his nuke and it's his team fight. Then relocate at every single possible level because the cooldown reduction on it is fairly significant. Overcharge is the second skill that he maxes because generally you want to give somebody that attack speed, and the cooldown reduction on it is also quite significant. Level 10, 35 damage because you're a core. Level 15, 325 spirits max range because you're playing around the Aghanim Scepter. Max out your tether last because it's not all that great to max out. And then level 20, 60 spirits damage, of course, once again, because you're playing around the Aghanim Scepter. And then level 25, you go for the left talent, attack tethered allies target, because you become a secondary carry. It's very ridiculous. I don't see how you lose in the late game on IO. Starting items, you go for Bracer, Tango, just because you have enough regen from Overcharge and the stats on Bracer are insane. You rush a Basilius because you are double dipping on the mana regen on an item that is already a broken item. Magic Stick because every game's a stick game. Crown because of the efficient stats on it. You need it for getting last hits. Helm of Iron Will because 5 armor, 5 HP regen is great on IO. Into Helm Dom Rush because you don't necessarily always want to be playing around somebody as an offlaner. Sometimes you're making space and people don't want to do that with you, so this lets you play on your own and you don't have to go for boots, so hey, why not? Then you go for the Aghanim Scepter. This is the exact same thing as the carry IO. Once you get this, it is balls in people's face all day. You are doing a ton of damage in team fights. It is a big pain in the ass. After this, you can go for Heaven's Halberd, you can go for Vlad's. If you want to be a little bit on the greedier side and play for the late game, you can go for Deso, Satanic, that sort of thing, and play with that level 25 talent of attacking your ally's target. So first, I want to show you the way that Brax plays the very first creep wave, or I should say the very first couple of creep waves, because I believe that it sets the tone for the entire laning phase. So the first thing that I want to point out is that he immediately presses overcharge upon entering the lane, and he beats the crap out of a single melee creep. Now, the reason that he does this, as well as he does a creep pull, which is going to make, number one, this melee creep that he was just beating the crap out of, obviously it's dead, and then this creep over here, this ranged creep, is also going to die to these 2 melee creeps. So this is 100% intentional. This is so that way Brax can play with this creep advantage, which lets him and his Snapfire do exactly what they're doing right now, which is walking past the creep wave, splitting it up like this, and just trading. Once again, I want to show you that this is not just a coincidence. They do the pull again, playing to get a couple of denies here, presses overcharge, and tanks the creeps again. So both times he tanks the creeps a little bit, and he just right-clicks the creeps. So they rinse and repeat this over and over in this lane. So we have that typical offlane situation happening here where you take this tier 1 tower, and I just want to show you the sequence of how Brax plays, how he farms when his team isn't exactly ready to just run at the enemy team. Like, what is his kind of, his team is chilling and just farming. What does he do in these periods? Does he farm his triangle? Does he go to the safe lane? What does he do? And what they do, you can see Brax and his buddy here, they take the tower, and first they push out the wave, so that way the pressure is mounting onto this tier 2 tower from that tier 1 falling. He farms up the easy camp. They take this hard camp over here because, I mean, nothing better to do. May as well just farm it. It's stacked. And then they immediately run into the enemy jungle, and they begin taking that farm. So in a second here, this is going to look very stupid, because the entire enemy team runs at them, and they die. But this concept is extremely important, and I think if you're going to play this offlane IO, that this is how you need to farm. because this hero is incredible with farm, but you don't want to just be taking the triangle. I think if you have to take the triangle or something like that, then your job is to run with your team and make space and feed. And so the way Brax farms, because this hero is great with farm, like I said, is he takes the enemy farm. And you can see that this also allows him to wrap around to the enemy tier 1. So he kind of farms in this pattern that not only gets him farm and makes space for his team, but it lets him do this kind of wraparound play. At a certain point, Brax's Morphling picks up a Lincoln Sphere, his Lena picks up a Yule Scepter, they take a few fights against the enemy team, they win, they feel very confident that if they take a 5v5, they will win as long as it is truly on even grounds. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're strong enough to take a tier 2. That doesn't mean that they're strong enough to take high ground, or Roshan, for example. So what do they do when they're in this period where they can fight, but they're also okay with farming as long as they're farming more of the map? Well, Brax, what he does is he just goes to the space that his team doesn't want to take. This is a very typical offlaning thing, but the great thing about doing this on IO is that you can literally just click somewhere on the map and then you relocate to that position. So he can sit here and push this lane out, which is getting him a ton of farm, as well as this forces CC&C to TP rotate towards this bot lane, where CC&C does not want to be. Once Brax picks up his Aghanim Scepter on this IO, he spends the large majority of his time around his team now, instead of split pushing. So they smoke up, you can't see the balls, but they are out. Brax always has his balls out in this game once he has the Aghanim Scepter. They literally just walk into Rosh to force a fight. I guarantee you that's the call in this game. They're not Roshing because they want the Aegis, they're Roshing because it forces the enemy team to run at you, which is exactly why when PPD comes in and tries to curse them, they just run out and kill him, because they're literally just like, okay, we can take any fight right now. We've got the IO Ags, we've got farm on our other heroes, we're good to go. Tiny comes in, he tries to take it, Brax is attached to his Morphling, he relocates him forward to the Bloodseeker. They can dive like crazy because Brax is confident that he can save his Morph. At this point, your entire hero is literally just about buffing your carry in the team fights. It is as simple as that. There is nothing more to it. There's no target priority. It's nothing like that. It is just playing with distance. It is trying to stay away. It's trying to keep yourself alive and trying to keep your carry alive. Number 2, Snapfire mid. And if you're looking for any current replays on this, I would highly recommend checking out Ryoya on Dota 2 Pro Tracker. He actually gave me a bunch of information on this hero when I asked him about it. But basically, my understanding of this hero in the mid lane is that when you rush the Ags, it gives you this low cooldown, high damage, good lockdown. It's an extremely long range, kind of like Infest Bomb on Nakes, but with any hero, and it also gives you amazing save, and if you don't want to risk tossing a hero, you can use it to instantly clear creep waves by throwing in a creep, or you can harass enemies in the exact same way. It's similar to something like a Silencer or a Death Prophet Ags, where it makes this hero not so reliant on a long cooldown ultimate. And then in the late game, you scale with Little Shredder and MKB plus Daedalus. So really, this hero is this perfect kind of early game spellcaster with a broken Ags into a very powerful late game that you can actually get to because the early game is so good. Once again, I want to quickly take a look at the skill and item build that Ryoya does on this hero. First, he maxes Scatter Blast because it's a great nuke for pushing out the lane, securing runes from pushing the lane, as well as jungling. Fire Snap Cookie, exact same thing, except it's a stun and does a little bit less damage. Then he goes for Mortimer Kisses at every single point because it's the teamfight ability, and this hero, I mean, it makes this hero so strong. 15 move speed at level 10 because this hero likes to run around and get kills, but you feel pretty slow. 15, 60 Scatter Blast damage because you are just playing to nuke people and do damage in the mid lane. Level 20, Little Shredder uses your attack damage because you go for an MKB at this point. Then you go for the 3x Little Shredder multi-shot damage, and typical mid lane items, rushing a bottle into a bracer, into a wand, which could have been another bracer possibly if he feels like he needs to be a little bit tankier. Then boots for running around, and instead of going for the drums first, Ryoya was explaining to me he wanted to go for the point booster and the ogre axe because it basically just gives you it gives you decent stats just like drums would. It's just as early game, and this hero really feels broken once you get the Aghanim Scepter. So rushing that as soon as possible feels extremely good. You get the Ags, you run around, you look for any team fight you can, which means Boots of Travel is going to be good, into Blink Dagger because you're literally just looking to take fights. Level 20, it's all about the right click damage on the Little Shredder talent, so you go for an MKB, into BKB because he needed it, into Daedalus. If you don't need a BKB, you probably just go for Daedalus, and then he literally goes Rapier, but I feel like Deso, Mjolnir, things like that would also be fine. So the way that Ryoya plays the very first couple of creep waves is pretty cool. He does the typical pull where you just pull to the range creep, which is going to mean that you can go for the last hit, which he does with Scatter Blast, and then he can go for the deny. So he's really abusing the fact that this hero is so goddamn tanky. Once CCNC comes up to get the last hit, he pulls aggro, which means that CCNC is not going to be able to get the last hit, so he can keep trading because the creeps are going to hit him. And then he walks up, hits this creep once, and then uses the Scatter Blast to try to secure the last hit. And once again, you can see on the second wave, he does the exact same pull. He just keeps rinsing and repeating this. And now that he's got the Fire Snap cookie, he can play directly on the ranged creep. And if CCNC once again wasn't respecting this, I think he would walk up and try to play close to the creep as well, which would get him the last hit, but I think he would get Fire Snap cookied and Scatter Blasted, which would be very bad. So similar to the IO that we just looked at, I want to look at what happens in this game, what Ryoya does before he gets to that Aghanim's timing, which is what you really want to group up and fight with. So how does he get to that timing? And essentially what he's done is he just fights with Mortimer Kisses off cooldown, and then he just farms camps with his 2 nukes. He really prioritizes sending out clarities, using his full bottle charges, using Arcane Ring instead of another item to just constantly spam and nuke jungle camps. He stacks camps. He goes for runes specifically so he can jungle. Like, you can see in his gameplay that he really highly prioritizes this Aghanim Scepter. But every time he has Mortimer Kisses up, he runs to his Faceless Void. He runs and he jungles, but he jungles near, or he pushes out the lane near his Faceless Void and near his Legion Commander, because he knows that the Mortimer Kisses, you can use this to secure some really damn easy team fights. Just like this. It's very simple. And so if you don't have a hero that can set up for Mortimer Kisses, well, you probably want to hard farm the Aghanim Scepter and then maybe use the Mortimer Kisses to just push out waves or something like that, or you can split push side lanes. But I would just highly recommend picking this hero when you have some sort of stun setup for the Mortimer Kisses, something like a Clockwork, Faceless Void, Legion Commander, heroes like that. And when he doesn't have the Mortimer Kisses, he just runs at waves, pushes out waves, jungles a bit, tries to take aggressive jungle if he can, because he's very tanky, so why not? And every single time a rune spawns, he is on top of the spawn. So this game was going kind of horribly, even though Ryoya was doing perfectly fine. And so what he does is he stays in the game and he keeps his team in the game by split pushing side lanes. And the way that he did this is he would walk up and he would Scatter Blast and Fire Snap Cookie and kill the wave. And then the very next wave he would gobble up and then spit out at that wave. And so that's basically what you do whenever you're behind on this hero, is you just sit in a side lane, gobble up, spit out, push the lane, jungle nearby, get your farm, because this hero is an amazing late game hero. His team takes this really good fight mid. He contributes absolutely nothing, but, you know, such is life. His team gets a crucial nice pickoff. And then they see this Invoker, and here is exactly where you can see how extremely ridiculous this Ags is. How it breaks normal Dota, and I'm sure CCNC was very unhappy about this and screaming about it. He eats up this Legion Commander and then throws her out, I should say, right on top of CCNC, who thought in, you know, typical Dota terms, he should be perfectly fine. There's no way that a Legion is going to fly from halfway across the map and all of a sudden be right on top of him while he's stunned and taking nearly 1,000 damage. But there is indeed a Snapfire on the enemy team that has an Aghanim Scepter. Pretty goddamn ridiculous. Finally, I'm going to show you what a late game Snapfire teamfight looks like when he has all of these items. You can see that he doesn't just run in and try to Monkey King bar people like an idiot. We'll see in a second here. So just kind of playing the perimeter and keeping his distance with Blink Dagger. He's waiting for his Faceless Void to hit a Chrono, maybe waiting for his Legion to hit a duel, but he's sitting in the trees, right? Like, a big mistake that you can make at this point is walking in and trying to Monkey King bar people. I think this is what people did originally on Snapfire when she was being played as an offlaner. People were playing exclusively for this Monkey King bar thing, but basically your number one priority is to be this big team fighter. So he slams the Morphling with the Snapfire ulti, and then slams the Invoker. These are the two best targets they could possibly catch. The utility of this hero is really difficult to match when you have this Aghanim Scepter. I see this similar to like a Pudge, where the late game potential is just incredibly high. You can see he eats this guy and then blinks forward with him. So bringing the Faceless Void in, and then they do end up getting the Jakiro. It's a long chase because, of course, 2 cores in the late game are never going to have any detection, even in a high-rated game. But they do eventually get him. And you can also see the Monkey King bar damage that comes from the little Shredder afterwards, after he uses the spell casting abilities, because that is his number one priority. but still scaling to be not useless outside of having the Mortimer Kisses. That's the nice thing about this hero when you go for this build, is that even if you don't have the Mortimer Kisses, you still have Gobble Up and you still have Spit Out, and then you have your Monkey King bar damage as well. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hate to continuously bring this up week after week, because I know it's very depressing for me, so it's probably pretty depressing for you guys, but the hobo situation has actually worsened. Now what they've been doing to me is releasing these rabid ferrets into my house, and so that's very expensive because they will indeed nibble at your feet while you're trying to sleep, and my family's feet and my dogs and things like that. And so also getting those things relocated and cured of their rabidity is quite expensive. And so shout outs to ProGuides for supporting me in this journey and dealing with this situation. And go ahead and give them some support by clicking their link in the description below. I would really appreciate you supporting them so that they support me. And of course, you can always like, comment, and subscribe. That really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you in another video.